It was a normal
What's
Tuesday
the
morning at
worst
my high school
school
incident
incident
where
you've
you're
ever
barely
witnessed?
awake, drifting through your first classes like a zombie. I was in the back of history class, staring out the window, when I heard the first crash. It was loud, like something heavy hitting the floor. Then the shouting started, distant but growing louder, like an argument spiraling out of control. Mrs. Harris didn't seem to notice, but everyone else in the class was starting to look around, exchanging confused glances. The noise outside grew, and I could feel the tension building. That's when the door swung open. Max and Ethan, two of the biggest guys in school, burst into the room. Their faces were red, their shirts torn, and they looked absolutely furious. Max was the first to speak, his voice full of rage. "Move," he shouted, pushing past desks and knocking a chair to the ground. I didn't understand at first. Why were they in here? What was going on? But then, without warning, Max lunged at Ethan. A fight. A real fight. No yelling, no warning. Just fists flying. Ethan ducked, but Max got him good, landing a punch that sent Ethan stumbling backward. Everyone froze. I don't know if it was the shock or the fear, but no one moved. Mrs. Harris stood up, trying to say something, but her voice got lost in the chaos. My heart was racing. It was like everything in the world had stopped for a second, like I was trapped in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Max and Ethan kept going at each other, their fists colliding with terrifying force. You could hear the sickening sound of punches landing. Just when it felt like things couldn't get worse, Officer Jensen, the school resource officer, burst through the door. He shouted for them to stop, but neither of them seemed to hear him. He rushed forward, grabbed Max by the arm, and tried to pull him off Ethan. Finally, with some help from another officer, they managed to separate them. Max and Ethan were breathing hard, their faces bruised and bloodied. They didn't say anything as they were escorted out of the room. Mrs. Harris stood there pale, her hand still gripping the front of her desk as if she was trying to steady herself. The room was eerily silent. The sound of her classmates whispering filled the air as they exchanged stories about what happened. The fight, the reasons, some said it was over a girl, some said it was something deeper. All I knew was that something had broken inside both of them, and none of us had seen it coming. I've seen fights before, sure. But this was different. It was raw, uncontrolled. Max and Ethan weren't just angry, they were lost in a way I'd never seen before. It made me wonder, what does it take to push someone that far? You never really know what someone's capable of until everything falls apart in front of you. That day, I learned that sometimes the worst school incidents aren't the ones you see coming, but the ones that hit you when you least expect it. Follow for part 2.